Hello and welcome to On Second Street. Over the past couple of years, we've seen more and more organizations talking about DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Different companies are embracing this in their policies, schools, and so forth. But some critics say it's time for DEI to DIE, to get rid of this policy. Today, we're going to have a big discussion about diversity, equity, and inclusion policies. And here to chat with me about it is Mark Milke. He's the founder of the Aristotle Foundation, and Samuel Say, who's the founder of slowtowrite.com. Thank you both for taking a few minutes to chat with us about this important topic. Mark, I'll start off with you. Can you just give us sort of a quick briefing on what is diversity, equity, and inclusion? It sounds like such a nice thing, but you have some serious concerns with it. What's your take on it?
Well, there's a lot there, but I would say over the last 10 years, diversity, equity, and inclusion has come a lot from the writings of a number of people, including, some Atlantic Monthly writers and others in the United States. And Abraham X. Kendi, for example, who's argued a number of books that basically a lot of the economic outcomes you see are due to racism, especially institutional racism. Now, there's nothing wrong with the notion of diversity. Japan closed up for 2.5 centuries, not a good idea. When it was forced to reopen in the mid 1800s at the point of an American gunship, it found it was in a weaker position precisely because it hadn't learned from the rest of the world, right? The most successful people, cultures, and civilizations in history learned from other people and incorporate other people into their society and civilization, and regardless of skin color, ethnicity, and the rest of it. So there's nothing wrong with diversity. But to say that most economic outcomes are due to institutional racism or something that happened 200 years ago is faulty. There's lots of other things that go into economic outcomes between peoples, between groups, even in exact families. As Thomas Sowell once observed quite famously, people in the same family have different outcomes, but they had the exact same upbringing, right? Kids did. So,
Mhm.
racism these days, at least in liberal democracies, explains very little. There's other things we should look at. And DEI in particular can be illiberal by saying you're the wrong skin color this decade, therefore you can't have this job or position. That's pretty illiberal, and I thought we were getting away from it. And that's kind of where we started, but basically replicating a lot of the work Thomas Sowell has done in the American context in Canada.
And Samuel, critics or people that are putting forward these ideas will say that, yeah, no, it's great. It helps visible minorities, disadvantaged groups, and that. But you've been a very outspoken critic of this policy. What's your take on why you think diversity, equity, and inclusion policies are bad?
Yeah, it's bad because, as Mark mentioned, they start off with an ideology. And the ideology, of course, is that
Mm,
white people are oppressors and that people who are not white, everybody else, are oppressed. And that already is a faulty, immoral, unethical ideology. So then the solution to that is also going to be unethical. So, he mentioned, Mark mentioned Ibrahim X. Kendi. It's important to realize that DEI is really just the corporate version, or really just the practice of critical race theory. It is what businesses are doing to really implement that view, critical race theory, woke ideology.
mhm,
So what it's really doing is it's not really focusing in on really helping minorities. It may claim that, but really it is trying to and it's trying to bring really white people down. And I'm not just saying, it may seem shocking to some people to hear that, but they really do say this
mhm.
in his book, How to Be an Anti-Racist, which I think the better title is How to Be a Racist. Ibrahim X. Kendi says that, that racism is only really bad if it's leading to inequity, but it's good if it's leading to equity, which is really about, again, trying to create a certain kind of outcome in society instead of really trying to help individuals who are minorities.
So, Sam, let's break this down a little bit more. What is an example of a DEI policy specifically that you look at and you say, well, this may be well intentioned, but it's just doesn't make sense?
Well, a lot of it, there's so many kinds of it, but a lot of it is going to be, for example, when it just comes to, what is called the DEI, trainings, right, where they just assume that white employees just do not understand the issue of race. They do not understand
Mm,
how to really just love their black employees. That alone is the DEI. Example, right? So they're trying to train you to to dismantle your whiteness. They will say oftentimes, or
mhm,
especially when it comes to the issue of equity, it is we need certain kinds, we need about something as crazy as we need about 5 people who are minorities to have this role in our company. Therefore, we're going to advertise these jobs exclusively for these minorities.
Okay, listen, when we come back, we're going to continue to unpack the whole issue of DEI. We'll be back in just a moment.